happy to everybody that's listening to the sound of my voice. You know who you're listening to, right? The Telisa Franklin right here on FM 104, AM 1240, WAV in the trend. Well, you know what we're doing over here, right? We're trending the music, the culture, and the conversations. And on today, there is no more than this week has been nothing short of amazing with mental health awareness. And hey, the train keep it going, baby, because this young man in which I am going to be sharing with you on today, he's going to really give us some best practices. He's going to really just dig deep to help us. And what I mean help us, me a little church girl, you a little church boy, we're going to help the church on today. And so because we're going to understand that our churches, for so many things that we do on a daily basis in our life and our personal life, just period, right? Even in our businesses or how we go to work, it has to be a godly business, this, that, and other. But we got to understand that the church is setting the tone for the community. So I'm ready to have this mental health awareness conversation with none other than the Charles Winton. He's going to, because let me tell you, he wears a many hats, but one of his true callings, I told him offline, I am so proud of him that he knew that we is the Black church and the Black culture needed him. And he started working on this project years ago for a time like this. Welcome the true, the one, the only, Mr. Charles Winton. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Telisa, it's good to be on the trend. I finally made it to the trend and I'm excited to be here with you, Telisa. We've been rocking for a long time, but never on the trend. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, you've been with me through a lot of my journeys of this great thing called life.
I know it, and now I'm jumping on this trend band too, because wherever you go, I'm going.
Thank you, Charles. So, Charles, I remember when you had your celebration over there with Kelly, and we were celebrating you or getting your therapist license. And I was in the back of my head, I see, you know what, whatever Charles set his mind to do was do it. But I was like, this is really different from his entertainment, from his criminal justice piece. I said, he done flipped the whole script, not one flip on the page. He flipped the whole book, rather. So kind of tell people, who is Charles Winton, and then follow up with why you are doing what you're doing now in your calling.
Well, a lot of people, Telisa, don't know my background. And I think if people really knew my background, they'll understand the calling that's on my life and how I ended up in therapy, because that's why I tell people, even in doing career counseling, I do career counseling as well, is finding that spot. You know how they've always said, if you find what you love to do, you'll never have to work another day in your life. I really and truly grab a hold to that, and I believe it. So I grew up, Telisa, in the hood in Binghamton. And so my mom was a single mom with 3 kids and had to work 3 or 4 jobs to provide for us. And so in my community, growing up in Binghamton, Telisa, there was a lot of single parent mothers, no fathers in the home. And so a lot of us turned to gangs and turned to violence. There was something in me, and I didn't know about therapy at that moment. There was something in me that wanted to present something different to the African-American and guys in my situation. So I knew at an early age that I wanted to work in prison. So what people don't really probably know about me is that I spent 20 years, Telisa, working in prison as a counselor, a drug and alcohol counselor, behavior specialist, and then moved on up. But that was my bread and butter, is working in the prison. And so therefore that launched what I'm doing now, because after 20 years, a light came on. And I was like, Telisa, I'm helping guys on the back end after they've gone through the system, and then I'm helping them to get their life together. And I was sitting one day and I was like, I want to do something on the front end. And you mentioned Kelly, and Kelly invited me to one of her therapy launching when she launched to be a therapist. And I was sitting way in the back, Telisa, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my career. And it's like, when she was telling her story, I lit up, right? I lit up and I said, this is it. This is how I can help on the front end. And so I went right to college, got my master's in marriage and family therapy. And then I got certified as a trauma therapist. And so now I'm a certified EMDR specialist, one of the few in the state of Tennessee. And so that means, Telisa, I work with people who have been raped, molested, coming out of divorce, lost a dream and at the end of their rope, and then I come in at that moment. So that's what kind of launched me to do what I'm doing now. And that was back in 2012. And so I knew then this is what I wanted to do. And I'm telling you, I am enjoying it. It's not work to me, it's what I love to do.
Charles, now see, you told me some stuff. I thought I knew Charles Winton, right? I'm like,
Well, I
I
seen you
know
looking,
Charles.
I seen you looking, you were like, I didn't know that.
I did not. And so I get it though. I really get it. Sometimes people see the glory, but they don't know the true story. And
Absolutely.
I knew you worked in a prison, but I always just saw you as a leadership, but never knew that you were actually really helping those individuals to do better when they come back out for their second chance on life. So that's what I really just thought, that you were just handling that, managing it, and making it do what it do, right?
No, ma'am, that's the later part of my career. But in the first 12 or 13 years of my career, I was on the front line, literally on the front line in the prison where they come out 23-1. I was the counselor in that area, and I worked with those guys, and those guys brought me in, trusted me. And so I was on the front line in prison.
Wow. Okay, Charles. I know. Look, I don't even have to ask. Miss Pat showing up prayed a many days and a
Oh,
many
yes. She said, Charles, I really don't like you working in this prison. She made that known, but it was my calling. And
yeah.
so I had to do it.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you were led by the Lord, because right now, because I said Miss Pat, because Miss Pat is such. Yeah, let me tell y'all, if y'all don't know a great caterer, you got to know Silver Platter Catering. Miss Pat is the bazam with what she does. Josh, you just been blessed with a great family. I have to admit,
Thank
your
you.
family is amazing. I love your family. I love your family. Like when I eat at y'all house, I feel like I'm at home. I can eat with my fingers. I can be country. I
I
can just
know.
I can take my wig off. I feel like I'm at home.
Believe it or not, that's like one of the ministries, Telisa, that I don't know if you knew this, but I opened a restaurant at 21 years old. And my mom came off her job so I can continue to work in prison. And she ran the restaurant. And so we did that for about 4 or 5 years. So we think that our food is a blessing. I can't tell you the number of people. I remember this distinctly, Telisa. A man came out the hospital with the wristband on. You know how you still have it on?
Yeah.
And he said, I had to come get some good food once I got out the hospital. It's just going to bless me real good. And so he sat out in the lobby and ate, and then he was kicking his legs, and he was like, this is what I needed. So it was that moment I knew our food was blessed.
But let me tell you, I did not know that was your restaurant. I thought it was your mom, because I had my first flower shop was on Poplar, 2552 Poplar, and I would order from you all, and you would sometimes bring it, and I didn't know you
Mhm.
personally. I was like, man, that boy gonna bring me that good food, and
Yeah,
now I understand it's in the blood.
that was my dream. That was one of my
Oh
dreams
wow.
too.
And every
I
time I
believe in
pass by your old location, I said, look at Miss Pat's old restaurant.
I believe in going after your dream, Talisa. That's one reason why I connect with you, because I see how you following your dreams. I don't care what it is. If it's in your hands to do it. And so I don't want to get to the end of my life, Talisa, and say, I wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda. Everything that I feel like I can do, I want to do it. And I want to use this time and want God to be saying, well done. You've done everything that I asked you to do and more. So that's why I take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about that, Charles. Many people that's in the church community, they model their life on what the leader says, right? Or
Mhm.
what their faith, and sometimes it's not the faith, it's what the leaders say. Some people
Absolutely.
never even pick up the Bible. They come to church and they wait for a pastor, him or her, to really tell them their next direction. They wait. And if the pastor say, I don't believe in that, then they don't believe. There's like,
Absolutely.
even like right now in with yoga, I've seen some churches that have a yoga class, right? But then I have other pastors that say they don't believe in yoga. So that tells whoever's in that leader, tells that congregation really how to believe. And so let's even think about when growing up in our old churches, that we didn't know much about the Holy Ghost. So you didn't come over and speaking in tongue in this church, but in this
Right.
church it was welcome, right? And so, but then as
Absolutely.
we grew up, we had to merge with some stuff. And so now here it is, mental health. when you grow up and say, if you go to a doctor, you're crazy. You can go to Jesus. He's a doctor of all doctors, and he can do this and he can do that. But I tell people, Charles, I got Jesus and a therapist because I understand that sometimes I need to talk and somebody needs somebody to talk back to me that's going to keep it confidential, that's going to help steer me into that next direction. But I know you have been doing I call it your church tour, right? You're on tour. Y'all that's listening, y'all better go ahead and get with Charles and get on his tour schedule to help your people to that next dimension. Because
Yes.
on helping with mental health, and I know I was talking to one of my Caucasian colleagues one day. We are just having a conversation about mental health. And somehow she said, well, Telisa, I've had a therapist since I was 15. I said, do what? And she said, in our culture, it's open. We believe in having therapists younger so that we can have that right direction. I said, well, girl, in our culture, we ain't going to see nobody. I remember Charles, and I'm open about it now. During the time my grandfather passed away, I knew after the burial I wasn't in a good place, and I was
Hmm.
young in life. Right? I knew I was not in a good place up here. And so I ended up seeing a therapist for a whole year, but it was such a stigma
Hmm.
about seeing a therapist. So I never told nobody in my family. For a whole
No.
year, I made
Right.
it my business to go on Tuesdays. And I remember the day. This is the funny part. It wasn't nothing else mattering. I went because I knew that if I didn't go get some help, somebody was going to have to help me later in life. And I believe that through all my good, the bad, and the ugly has helped happen in my life, especially the ugly. Had I not gotten help to know how to work it and use some best practices, I don't believe I would be standing doing what I'm doing as a champion
Absolutely.
of mental health.
Absolutely.
And but I didn't feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying? My granddad was a pastor. My uncle was a pastor. Everybody in my churches, everybody in my family is some sort of leadership, but nobody could identify that to Lisa needs some help. You know,
Hmm.
she had some traumatic and stuff. Daddy was her protector. Now the protector, the blanket of me is gone, right? And
Absolutely.
I knew then I needed some help. And so I want you to help us because there's somebody right now that's in the church and knowing and they seeing that that person is crumbling. They already crumbled. And you can help them before they fall deeper in the water. But the church says sometimes, some churches will say, just pray about it. Bring her to the altar. She can get delivered. God can deliver her. Help us, Charles, the way you're helping other ministries so the people that's listening can know they may need to approach their pastor and say, hey, we may need this Charles Winton guy. He may can help us because they may be the ones that's really in the bad shape and they're gonna just try to make it seem like everybody. And it's okay if you want to say you ain't in trouble, but you in the room and you get it, have it. So Charles,
Right.
kind of help us with that.
Well, I want to, you mentioned the church tour because I believe that that's my mission right now is to start at the church. I am a church boy. I've been in church all my life. That's one thing mom made sure we did was be in church. So I was a minister of music in church for 14 years. I was a youth pastor at my church for about 15 years. And so that's my heart. And so when I wanted to start at the church, because I think I mentioned to you, I heard a person say at a conference that the Black church, the African American church, is the standard for our communities. And when I was sitting in the audience, it really hit me how impactful our churches are. You mentioned earlier what the pastors say, what they believe, then the congregation takes and it implements in their family, takes it on their job, and it becomes what the community standard be. So what was the word that was sent from mental health and originally in our churches? Well, let's go back to the thoughts and the myth that grandma taught us that in African American homes, Telisa, what happens in this house, what
Stays in this house.
stays in this house. See, and you and I didn't grow up in the same house. So how did you know that? So that tells you it's an African American culture that has permeated all the way down into our systems that is become a system in our houses, in our families, in our communities. So what we have to do is start at the church. At least that's what my mission is. And so I'm asking all churches, pastor leaders to let us come, let us talk about these myths, let us dispel the myths that therapists for crazy folks, or if you go to therapy, you must not believe God. And so we trying to figure out, Telisa, where did those thoughts come from? Where did it start? So we can get it at the nucleus and then disrupt that thought, because we got another generation that's coming up and we need to let them know the truth. And it's God plus therapy equals success.
Yeah.
So that's
And
what
I
we're trying
believe
to
it.
push.
And
You
so,
believe
Charles,
it?
yeah, just you said something that we as a Black culture, we've been doing things, and we now even rarely go through our children. What goes on in this house stays in this house.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things for me I've seen that happen in the house or in our family is rape. So many people are dealing with rape, but you can't talk about it because it said what goes in this house stays in this house. That you
Absolutely.
have people that's been dealing with domestic violence. You may see mama or daddy beating on each other, but when they get to church, they the happy couple. But as soon as they get
Absolutely.
home, and I even tell, I'm openly say that growing up, I don't recall hearing "I love you." Like me, I laugh at my son. I think I tell him that so many times a day, right? Because
Right.
I don't ever want him to ever even think that mama don't love them. Mama loves you, son. And
Absolutely.
sometimes in the Black church, we say, I love you to everybody in the church. But the question is, have we said it to the people that's in our own house, under our roof? We go to church, and I saw it. I would see everybody hug daddy and hug daddy. And sometimes as a little girl, all you wanted was just a hug. But you
Mm-hmm.
saw it at church, but you didn't see it at home. And now I'm so proud of some of the pastors now I openly say that they said PK kids are the worst kids. I think they
Mm-hmm.
said that because PK kids were hungry for attention and they needed some help, but nobody even answered the door to their call that I need help, I need attention. So they start acting out, and many of the PK kids are dealing with mental illness, and they may just needed something to balance them out. But because we pray about everything and we're not doing any action, they don't have anything. So help us from that point of view, because I know you said you did some rape counseling and so forth.
Yes.
There are some
Yes.
people right now are still battered and bruised by that, or then some people find they were hurt. Now they're gonna help hurt the next generation, and they
Absolutely.
may need some help. So kind of help us with that for that person that's listening, that's in either one of those scenarios.
So I mentioned to you, I'm a certified trauma therapist. And one of the things I want to let your listeners know is that you may have some that are saying, well, I can't identify with this section because I hadn't been raped, I haven't been molested, I haven't been through a divorce. So that's not really to me. But then you flipped and said something else, to Lisa. You mentioned to say what you didn't get. You didn't get "I love you." So I want to let your listeners know clearly, trauma is not always what happened to you. Trauma can be what didn't happen to you. And I want you to think
Mm.
about that. I didn't get a dad. I didn't get a dad. You didn't get the "I love you." But we wasn't raped, we weren't molested, but it cuts just the
Yeah.
same as the real trauma, that some of us say real trauma. Because what trauma is a deep, distressing event. I want you to think about that. A deep, distressing event. So it takes away you judging what trauma is for me. As long as we can identify, to Lisa, that this pain was real, this scar hurt. It doesn't matter where it came from. What we are trying to identify with in trauma is the scar is the same. And that is what I want your listeners to know. If you have a deep, distressing event and a scar that people tell you, Telisa, get over it, girl. I had a divorce and I got over it. Get over it. He died a long time ago. And you're screaming, I can't get over it. And I don't know why I can't get over it, because it's a deep, distressing event. And no one can put a time on it. You have to heal on your own. And we give you that space. So you might be out there listening and saying, well, I haven't been raped, I haven't been molested, but it's not about what happened to you, what didn't happen to you. I didn't get the love, I didn't get the support. And so that can be traumatizing as well.
So you said something, Charles. I want you to deal on it because right now, love. We're going into Valentine's, a loved one. We're in February, right? and we're in love month, and some people are going to be reminiscent because what did happen, what didn't
Mhm.
happen, how much they was in love, and now divorces came, right? And we
Right.
know the church said this about divorce, but what did God say about divorce and this, that, and other? But regardless of all that, you're still dealing with that deep trauma, that deep what happened to me. I can't get over it. Is the divorce still feel like it's one day or 10 years? I still feel the pain. Help that person how to identify that they need some help and they need it now, so that especially around these holidays, they won't be triggered of the pain again.
Well, they first of all, I like to explain real quickly on what happens because holidays can be good for some, happy for some, but then they bring back memories for others. So in our limbic part of our brain, back here in the limbic part, that's what houses our memories and our trauma. And because Talisa, all of us are busy with life, we're busy with kids, raising a family, and when things happen, we just what we call push it back, we stuff it. Well, what you're actually doing is putting it in a file cabinet in your limbic brain. Well, then what happens when holidays come? You hear a song, you see a Facebook posting, and those things bring back those memories. And then it does something to your emotion. And what it's actually doing is saying that it's happening all over again. And
Mm.
so your mind doesn't automatically think that, well, that was 10 years ago. So why am I still feeling this way in 2022 when I got divorced in 1999? Because those memories, if you haven't dealt with it or processed it, is still in your memory bank. And therefore, when holidays come, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day come, it brings back those old memories, which then brings back those old feelings. And then you see people getting depressed in these seasons. You see them isolating in these seasons because they don't know exactly where it's coming from because they haven't made the connection. This is having to do with 1999, but yet it's 2022. So I haven't made that connection. And that's why you need therapy to try and put it all together to help you explain why is it on an Valentine's Day season, I go in a like a depressive state. Well, that could be the reason, and we want to help you explain your emotions because there is a root to it.
Yeah, so you all that's listening to FM 104 AM 1240 WABN The Trend, listen, I'm talking with therapist, amazing young man, Charles Winton, and I'm dealing with, we're having conversations about issues, mental issues. The church has set the tone for our community. So many of us grew up in church, and we grew up, what happens in our family stays in our family. What happens in our church stays in our church. But now, but you're still dealing with, as an adult, maybe you went through some rape in your home. Maybe you went through a divorce in your home. Maybe you went through something that's inside the church that wasn't godly, that you're still
Right.
traumatized through, and they telling you to get over it. God done forgot about it. Why you keep bringing it up, right? And so, but you're still dealing with the trauma. And one, I want us to really deal with, Charles, this last in January in the Black culture, we saw two people that was prominent in our community, as many of our children looked up to. Now we're wondering, how do we handle it? From the beauty queen to Regina King's son killing himself and suicide. And what I'm seeing more, there's more going on inside the church, even with
Mm-hmm.
suicide. And how do the church handle it? If somebody in your church commits suicide, is it taboo? Or is it we need to deal with it and let's tell the church? Because we went through an era, you remember, we had pastors committing suicide.
Yes.
And
Yes.
again, we didn't want to talk about that because it was pastors committing suicide. And so let's make sure that we're not sweeping things under the rug, because as I grew up, you sweep too much under that rug gonna buckle up, and eventually you're gonna see the buckle in that rug. And I think the church in some areas, Charles, we've swept so much stuff under the rug. Now the
Mm-hmm.
rug is buckling. We got to deal with it, because if not, now we tripping over that one buckle that we didn't swept under the rug. Help the church understand about suicide. If you're having Somebody is coming to your church, pastor, and you may not be trained um, um, to actually deal with the triggers and the words that you know. If somebody was about to commit suicide, them coming to you, you can identify some of those words versus to an untrained ear cannot identify those words, right? And so we may can prevent something from happening, but then what if it does happen? How do the church handles somebody that they love committed suicide? How do you handle the funeral? What scriptures would you say? Kind of help us with that, Charles, because the church, once again, don't want to have these conversations. So that's why we bring these conversations to the radio on here on the trend, because we're definitely trending the music, the culture, and the conversations, because this is the conversation that our culture needs to have. Help us, Charles.
Well, you're mentioning culture. When we talk about suicide, one of the things that I always mention at this point, you mentioned an era when pastors was committing suicide. And it brought up one memory of, I think his name was Teddy Park in Atlanta. And his church was waiting on him to come to service. And his wife had made it. And she said, like, well, he was in the parking, in the carport. So the church went back and he had found that he had shot himself in his carport. And one of the things that he had said the Sunday before, they had said the Sunday before, he felt like no one is listening. He said that over the pulpit. And one of the interviews is said that he had mentioned that the Sunday prior, he felt like God is not listening, no one is listening. And then as you read that interview further, Pastor E. Dewey Smith was a friend of his. And they interviewed E. Dewey Smith, and he said these words: in our church culture, it is not taught that we can communicate our feelings, our hurt, and our emotions. And when I read that interview, I thought about it. Our culture, what culture is he talking about? E. Dewey Smith, when he did the interview, he said, our culture does not allow for pastors and preachers and leaders. And really, he was talking about those at the top,
Yes.
those that are at the top, because there's an expectation placed on us. You mentioned Chesley Christ and Regina King's son. Even in our circular world, when people are at the top, one of the things E. Dewey Smith said, who can we talk to? Who can we share our pain to, Telisa? Who can we share our hurt? Because everybody expects us to be the strong one. Everybody expects us to know the answer. Everybody expects us to have everything right. And if you're not one with, like you said, I admit I have a therapy. If you're not like that and open with it, what are you supposed to do with those emotions? What are Chesley Chris supposed to do with all the pressure being Miss USA? And who can I tell this to, because I'm supposed to be the leader? So I think that's part of it, is having a community, first of all, that is conducive and that will allow me to say to Lisa, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
I'm hurting. And I don't have to feel judged, and I don't have to feel condemned by me being who I am to say that hurts. And that is a true emotion. So number one is creating an environment. That's why I'm so happy for the trend and putting this week together and allowing us to come and talk and taking a break from music right quick to just say, let's talk about this, because what you're doing is opening up and making it conducive for people to be more open. And so I think creating a community, creating a support system. And lastly, I like to say, like the pastor said the week prior, um, uh, who can I talk to? I feel like God is not listening. Those are key words. So I think the more we pay attention to our loved one, the more we pay attention to the people around us. If you see something, say something. That's my motto. If you
Yes.
see something, Talisa, we found that out after 9/11. And people were saying, if you see packages, if you see something, say something. But I have developed that when it comes to terms of suicide, they kind of will let you know their behavior change. They start isolating, they saying words, they're acting different. So don't take that for granted. If you see something, say something.
And you got to say something. So many times in our community, we just say we got to be quiet. No, you don't. Say something.
Right.
And you're right. There is some leaders, and you got to have the right people around you, Charles. That's another thing I
Hmm.
have learned. I am so grateful for my godmother that's around me. That's my manager that books my show, because she can tell just as good when I'm faking it, because I may
Right.
have, and then she'll start saying, Telisa, I'm not putting that something on your schedule. You got to have some rest. I was like, no, but I promised them I was going to come here and I was come there. She's like, I don't care. She said,
Right.
that's why I got your schedule. You're not coming. Because what happens is, as a leader, Charles, our expectations is that we got to be there for everybody. But what
Absolutely.
happens when it's us? A few years ago, now going our second year, one of my special aunts passed away. And me and as a strong one in the family, they say, right? I don't know about this, but they say it.
Right. They
Um,
say.
and I remember handling the business, when she passed away, and the hospital called, said, "Do you want to come back?" I made the decision for the family, no, we're not coming back. And my
Hmm.
aunties look, I said, no, we saw her, we're not coming back. And so I had to make those decisions. And so going through the service, it was December the 21st. So I'm still dealing with how it's going. We do always do Christmas at my house. And so I never forget, my brother called me. He said, they call me Sus. Many people know my boys call me Sus. He said, Sus, we talked about the service. He said, that's Sus, how you doing? I said, do what, boy? How you, Sus, you okay? Sus. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay, boy. But you know what happened? The light bulb came in my life that I wasn't okay, right?
Hmm.
And so it's okay to say you're not okay. And so
Right.
I never forget, right after the funeral, that Monday after, because we had the funeral the Monday after Christmas, that Monday after the funeral, literally I went back home, I shot a text to my therapist. I said, hey, can we do a face-to-face on Zoom? Because I'm not okay,
Okay.
because I knew I wasn't okay. But in the church world, I could have said, just pray about it, pray about it, pray about it. And so that whole week, I could have been just praying and then praying, feeling like God is not answering, stings us into a stiffer depression and anxiety. And so I know
Right.
we're running, we're wrapping up, but I want you to deal with, from grief, how grief, if you don't get the grief counseling you need, Charles, and
Hmm.
especially in the church,
Right.
how it can lead to anxiety, how it can lead to depression, how it can lead to ways that we can never even imagine.
Right. I want you to think about it like this, as you mentioned, how can we deal with grief and sorrow and hurt and pain and trauma? I want your listeners to always remember this, and this is how I like to explain it. When you break your arm, Talisa, your mom and your parents will take you to the doctor, and then they take you to the doctor, they set it in the cast, and then they come back in 4 to 6 weeks. So what happens is, in order for your arm or that broken bone to heal right, it has to be set right. Think about that.
Mhm.
So, in order to heal right, it has to be set right. Well, I think of our mental and emotional state just like that. Whenever there's a breakage, whenever there's a tear, I lost my mom, I lost my dad, I lost my job, I got a divorce. That was a breakage and a tear in your mental and emotional state. So just think about it. If I go on without therapy, without grieving, without processing that, and I just continue on, then my mental state 5 and 10 years is not healing right. It didn't heal right because it wasn't set right. So in
Mm.
order to get the healing that you need, you have to pause and say, wait, I have to get this set right. Because just like if I did my arm and I didn't go and get it set right, it'll be dismangled. So are your emotions. When you don't take that time out there, breakage and a tear to get it set right, it won't heal right.
Wow, that's a good, Charles. That was good. Because you're right. If we break something, we need to get it right.
You need to get it
And
right.
some things are just not right. And you all that's listening, my pastors, my clergy, my leaders, take it from me. Get you somebody that you can trust and that you can feel comfortable. Don't try to do this by yourself. I know for me, sometimes I just enjoy, Charles, that if I can talk to my therapist, she just sit and listen to me.
Mhm.
She lit and listen, because I need to talk this out to somebody that's not going to look at me like I'm crazy, that's
Right.
not going to judge me. Because a lot of times we in the Black community, We don't want to tell nobody our life because we don't want to be judged.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned it earlier. What you found out is having the right people, and we call that a support system. So you need a support, develop a support system, those that would listen to you without judging. So the
Mhm.
support system is very important.
I love it. Charles, how can our leaders, our executive pastors, our senior pastors reach out to you? Because I know they've heard you deal with depression, from the anxiety to the suicide to the death to the rape, all the things that we say what goes on in this church
Mhm.
stays in this church. What goes on in our house stays in our house. But they understand, we understand that it should stay in there because what's happening is in the back of our minds and we can
Yes,
never let it go. And certain things, certain songs, happy feelings ain't always
exactly.
happy feelings, right? Is in the
Right.
air. But
It's-
knowing that you have a Charles Winton that can come to their church, come to their ministry, come to their corporate office, and help them deal with some of the situations. Tell people how they can get contacted to you, Charles.
Yes, I want to come to, I do office training. I do training with sheriff department. I do training with Shelby County schools. I come to your office. I come to your church because I'm really on the mission to get this word out and dispel the myth. So I'm on all social media at Charles Winton, or you can email me at info@charleswinton.com, 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 or just call me 901 310 9761, 901 310 9761. I'm on all social media outlets. You can just message me. I get a lot of messages. I just want you to contact me and we'll work out the specifics. So get in touch with me because this is my mission, is to educate, inspire, because I want us to be, even on our jobs, I want us to understand. So a lot of people quit jobs, Telisa, because of those file cabinets. And you quitting your mission, you quitting what God has called you to do. And it's not the stress of the job, it's the unprocessed memories that's causing more stress. So even on work related, we can deal with that as well.
So and you said something. What about Charles? To that person that's listening, may not be affiliated with a church. They may not have all these means of getting to the church, getting the word, but they know they need some one-on-one therapy. They need some one-on-one sessions. Do you do adolescents? Kind of talk from, we know what you can do for the church as a whole, but we still want to deal with that whole mind, body, and soul of that one individual. What services, what do you have that can help them get to where they need to be mentally?
Of course, my target is church communities, but I'm for everyone, adolescents 12 and up. I opened my own therapist, Well Springs Counseling, back in June, Talisa. So it's been going strong. Little did I know it would take off like this. We've already, I'm gonna need to hire other therapists because it's taken off. I do one-on-one therapy at Well Springs Counseling. You can hit me up at wellspringscounseling.org, wellspringscounseling.org, schedule an appointment. I see everybody. I'm not discriminatory. I see everybody. I don't care if what you're going through or what you're dealing with. I want to see you. I want to talk with you and I want to walk with you through your story.
I love it. So, Well Springs, you guys make sure you connect. What about, of course, Charles? Our listenership goes as far as Little Rock, deep down in Batesville,
Mhm.
up in Tennessee. So maybe we're hearing somebody that's listening to FM 104, AM 1240, WAV in the trend. Say, man, I really would like to talk to that brother, but I'm too far away. Are you doing Zoom sessions? Because
We do Zoom.
telehealth is a blessing to so many people, right? COVID, we always talk about COVID, but we kind of said there were some things that came through the pandemic that I think I'm a stick with, right? I
Oh,
love some of this stuff, right? This technology is amazing. It has saved me hours from my day of commuting just to do what
yes.
I do. So,
Yeah.
what about telehealth?
We do telehealth. You are absolutely right. COVID over the past year and a half or two have really changed our way of operation. But there are some things, if we look at it, Talisa, has opened up for grand opportunities. I know we can look at it and say there are some bad things, but I choose to look on the good side and the opportunities that this pandemic has opened up. And number one is telehealth. We're running back and forth to get to the office when now telehealth has taken off in this market, and we can see you on and from your own home and help you then. We're helping families on telehealth. So that's one avenue that has opened up. And I think, like you, I'm going to keep this.
I know I'm gonna keep it. I promise you, I'm gonna keep it. It's just been a blessing to me. I've been able to get on other platforms because of this, so I'm grateful.
Of
I am
course.
so grateful. Charles, you're doing such a phenomenal, incredible job, and I know your mom, your sister, and your niece, and everybody around you is so proud of you. But more so, I just want you to know that your community is watching you, brother, and we see your love and compassion for people, and now you're able to be for some little black boy. I think you'll be the perfect fit for them. So, mom, that you have a black son, and I ain't scared to say black white. It is what it is. Sometimes, mama, that you got a black son and you don't really understand what's going on with him. Give Charles Winton a try. Let another black brother help another black brother, and especially, mom, if you are a single mom and your boy just don't understand why dad this, that, and other, and they feel alone. I think, Charles, you can help black boys on a whole nother level, right? Because your mom was a single parent. Your mom did do over and above working three jobs to make sure you guys have the best. And now look at y'all now, right? And then you took coming from, like, you and I, we both lived in the hood, right? So just
Mhm.
because we lived in the hood didn't mean that we had to be a product, a negative product of the hood. You can come back and
Absolutely.
be a blessing to your community. And so you that's listening, take advantage of Charles Winton anointing that he has that can help your little black boy. Because there is, I feel like, Charles, the enemy has something against black. I pray over my boy all the time because I just want the hands of the Lord to stay on his life and to cover him. Because there's so many things going on. But from another black boy to an older black boy, I think you could help that next black boy to be as great as he could. Here you are, you done retired from one career, started another, started businesses, because you got the thing. Ain't no stopping me now.
Ain't no stopping me now.
You ain't no stopping you now, baby. Ain't none, right? And so I thank God for you. Again, give that number, that 901-310. Go ahead, give your number again, because I need people to call this
901.
number now.
Okay. 901-310-9761. Or you can email me at info@charleswinton.com. Info@charleswinton.com.
All right. Thank you, Charles. I love you now. Y'all
I
listen.
love
Y'all
you
listening
back.
to I love you. I really do. You're listening to the Telisa Franklin Show right here on FM 104, AM 1240, WAVE the Tree. Well, you know what we're doing over here, right? We're treating the music, the culture, and the conversations. Mr. Transformation is up next right here on the Tree. Keep it locked right here to FM 104, AM 1240, the Tree. Be blessed is my prayer.